He was a powerful man surrounded by wealth, but he had never felt true love. She was a hard-working young woman, trapped in life's struggles, with no time to dream. A mistaken hug brought them together and changed their lives unexpectedly. But when secrets from the past came to light, they had to choose between the pain of truth and the courage to love. Before diving into this emotional journey, don't forget to like and share this inspiring story. I'll translate this Portuguese story into American English, changing the names and locations to American ones, while maintaining the original length and story structure. Here's the beginning of the translation. Sophia Morgan had always been known for her impetuous and spontaneous personality. On that busy morning at JFK International Airport, she could barely contain her anxiety while waiting for her brother Lucas's return, who had left 2 years ago to study culinary arts in France. The arrivals board indicated that the flight from Paris had just landed, and her heart raced with each passenger who walked through the automatic doors of the arrivals area. Among the forming crowd, Sophia spotted a tall, familiar silhouette wearing a dark blazer. Without thinking twice, she ran toward him, throwing herself into a tight hug. However, something was different. The scent she felt wasn't the same one her brother usually wore, but rather a sophisticated masculine fragrance she had never experienced before. The stiffness of the body she embraced also didn't correspond to the warm welcome she expected from Lucas. When she finally pulled away and looked up, her brown eyes met an intense pair of green eyes that definitely didn't belong to her brother. The man she had mistakenly embraced was Ethan Harrison, one of the most discreet and successful businessmen in the country, although she didn't know that yet. I'm sorry, stammered Sophia, feeling her face burn with embarrassment. I thought you were my brother. Ethan, who normally maintained a serious and reserved posture in public, surprised himself by smiling at this unusual situation. There was something about the sincerity of that mistaken embrace that touched him in an inexplicable way. Don't worry, he replied, with a deep and gentle voice that made Sophia feel an unexpected shiver. It was an interesting mistake. The embarrassing moment could have ended there, but fate had other plans. As Sophia tried to compose herself, her bag slipped from her shoulder, spilling its contents across the airport floor. Ethan, without hesitation, knelt down to help her collect her belongings. Among the items was a card from a Roma cafe, where she worked as a barista. You work here? He asked, examining the card with genuine interest. Yes, replied Sophia, still embarrassed. I'm the head barista. Interesting. Perhaps I'll stop by one day to try your coffee. Before Sophia could respond, a familiar voice called her name. It was Lucas, finally arriving with his luggage. When she turned to hug her brother, the right one this time, Ethan had already disappeared into the crowd. On the way home, Sophia couldn't stop thinking about that surreal encounter. There was something magnetic about the presence of that stranger, an energy she couldn't explain. Lucas, noticing his sister's distraction, joked about the wrong hug throughout the journey, without imagining that that seemingly embarrassing moment would be the beginning of a story that would change his sister's life forever. The following week, Sophia returned to her routine at a Roma cafe, located in a charming historic neighborhood in Brooklyn. The establishment was known for its welcoming atmosphere and exceptional quality artisanal coffee. While preparing drinks with her usual precision and dedication, she occasionally found herself looking for those green eyes among the customers. Who entered? It was on a quiet Wednesday that he appeared. Ethan entered the cafe wearing an impeccable suit, but with a more relaxed posture than at the airport. Sophia recognized him immediately, and her heart skipped a beat when he headed directly to the counter where she was. A double espresso, please, he ordered, with a smile that seemed to hold some secret. And this time no surprise hugs. Sophia couldn't help but smile as she prepared the coffee, her experienced hands working with precision despite the nervousness she felt. When she handed the cup to Ethan, their fingers brushed lightly, causing an electric current that ran through her entire body. So, he said after the first sip, you don't just make coffee, you create experiences. The compliment caught her by surprise. Most customers just drank their coffee and left, but Ethan seemed genuinely interested in learning more about her work. Over the next few minutes, they talked about different brewing methods, about the origin of the beans, and about how Sophia had fallen in love with the art of coffee. What she didn't know was that Ethan, known for his business empire in the technology sector, was completely fascinated not only by the coffee, but mainly by the passion and authenticity with which she spoke about her work. It was a refreshing contrast to the corporate world he was used to, where relationships were often based on interests and appearances. That first visit to the cafe would be just the beginning. In the days that followed, Ethan became a regular customer, always choosing quieter times to be able to talk with Sophia. Each encounter revealed new layers of their personalities, creating a connection that went far beyond the relationship between barista and customer. However, while this bond strengthened, neither of them imagined that their lives were about to intertwine in much more complex ways. Fate had planted the seed of a story that would transcend social differences, prejudices, and barriers that the world would try to impose between them. Ethan's visits to Aroma Cafe became increasingly frequent over the following weeks. Sophia began to notice small details about him: how he always loosened his tie upon entering the cafe, how his eyes lit up when she experimented with a new coffee recipe, and how he seemed to create a private world for them, even amid the bustle of the establishment. However, the reality about who Ethan Harrison really was began to gradually reveal itself. On a particularly busy morning, Sophia was preparing coffee when she heard two customers talking about the latest report in Forbes magazine. "Did you see that Ethan Harrison is among the 10 most influential businessmen in the country? His fortune practically doubled after that merger with the European company," commented one of them, leafing through the magazine. Sophia almost dropped the cup she was holding. On the magazine cover, there he was, with his imposing posture and the penetrating gaze she knew so well. The article described him as a tech genius and America's most discreet billionaire, highlighting how his companies were revolutionizing the artificial intelligence market. That afternoon, when Ethan appeared for his usual coffee, Sophia looked at him with different eyes. It wasn't just about the money. It was an entire universe of social and cultural differences that suddenly seemed to rise between them like an invisible wall. "Why did you never tell me?" she asked, while serving his double espresso. "Tell you what?" he replied, genuinely confused. "About who you really are, about your companies, about everything." Ethan sighed, placing the cup on the counter. "Because here, with you, I can be just Ethan. Not the businessman, not the billionaire, just myself. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my life?" The sincerity in his voice touched Sophia deeply, but it didn't diminish her apprehension. Her world was that of artisanal coffee, simple aromas, unpretentious conversations with regular customers. His was the world of boardrooms, million-dollar decisions, gala dinners. That same week, Lucas, her brother, returned to the cafe after a frustrating job interview. Graduated with honors in culinary arts from France, he was having difficulties establishing himself in New York. The market was tough, and the most prestigious restaurants seemed to prefer already known names. "Don't lose heart," consoled Sophia, preparing her brother's favorite drink. "Your time will come." What she didn't expect was that Ethan, who was at his usual table, had overheard the conversation. Days later, Lucas received a surprising phone call, an offer to be executive chef at one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city, belonging to a close friend of Ethan's. When Sophia discovered Ethan's interference, her feelings were divided between gratitude and discomfort. "You didn't have to do that," she said when he appeared for his afternoon coffee. "I didn't do it for you," he replied with a smile. "Your brother is truly talented. I just created an opportunity for him to show that." Life began to change subtly. Ethan started inviting Sophia to dinners at sophisticated restaurants, but she always preferred simpler outings, like walks in the park or breakfast at neighborhood bakeries. He respected her choices, fascinated by how she made him rediscover the beauty in simple things. However, the outside world began to invade their bubble of happiness. Photographs of them together started circulating on social media, and the comments weren't always kind. "Gold digger, opportunist, and just another gold digger." The words hurt Sophia more than she would like to admit. The situation worsened when Rebecca Thompson, Ethan's ex-fiancée and heiress to an important family in the hotel industry, began giving interviews insinuating that Sophia was just another passing adventure for the businessman. "Don't let it affect you," Ethan would say, noticing how tense Sophia became each time a new sensationalist article was published. "They don't know us. They don't know who you are." But Sophia knew it wasn't that simple. Every time she entered an event alongside Ethan, she felt the judgmental looks, heard the poorly disguised whispers. Even at the cafe, some old customers now treated her differently, as if she had changed somehow. On a particularly difficult night, after reading another malicious article about their relationship, Sophia confided, "Sometimes I wonder if we're not fooling ourselves. Our worlds are very different, Ethan." He looked at her with that intensity that always made her heart race. "Different like coffee and hot water? Because as far as I know, it's precisely from that difference that something extraordinary is born." The analogy made her smile, but the doubts persisted. What Sophia still didn't know was that fate was preparing a twist that would test not only their love, but also her strength and determination. A truth from the past was about to emerge, connecting their lives in a way neither could imagine. Dawn in Brooklyn brought with it a fine mist, enveloping the skyscrapers in an ethereal mantle. Sophia woke up early, as usual, to open Aroma Cafe. While preparing the first batches of bread and croissants, her mind wandered between recent memories with Ethan and the uncertainties that still hovered over their relationship. That morning, however, something unexpected happened. Her father, Anthony, appeared at the cafe even before opening, with a worried expression that Sophia knew well. "Daughter, we need to talk," he said, sitting at one of the tables. Sophia felt a tightness in her chest. The last times her father had used that tone, the news hadn't been good. She joined him, serving 2 cups of freshly brewed coffee. "It's about Lucas," Anthony began hesitantly. "His test results came back and they're not good." Sophia's world seemed to slow down. Lucas, her younger brother, had done some routine tests after feeling constantly tired in recent months. No one expected it to be something serious. "What exactly did the doctors say?" she asked, trying to stay calm. "It's a rare blood condition. They say it's treatable, but..." Anthony hesitated, and Sophia realized there was more. "But what, Dad?" "The treatment is very expensive, Sophia. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. With the family's financial situation as it is, I don't know how we're going to manage." Sophia's mind began to spin. Since the family's old restaurant had closed years ago, leaving considerable debts, they had been struggling to get back on their feet financially. Aroma Cafe was profitable, but not enough to cover such high medical expenses. At that moment, Ethan's face appeared in her thoughts. He could help without even feeling the financial impact. But the idea of asking him for money, especially such a significant amount, made Sophia feel uncomfortable. She had always valued her independence and didn't want her relationship to be tainted by financial issues. The days that followed were tense. Sophia divided her time between the cafe, visits to the hospital to accompany Lucas's tests, and sleepless nights researching her brother's condition and possible treatment alternatives. Ethan, realizing something was wrong, tried to get closer. "Sophia, you know you can count on me for anything, don't you?" he said during one of his visits to the cafe. She nodded but couldn't open up completely. Pride and fear of appearing money-hungry prevented her from sharing the gravity of the situation. It was on a rainy afternoon that things reached a critical point. Lucas's doctor called, informing them that they had found a specialized clinic that could start treatment immediately, but they required a substantial initial deposit. Desperate, Sophia finally decided to talk to Ethan. She called him for a meeting in the park where they used to walk, away from the curious eyes that now constantly followed them. "Ethan, I need to tell you something," she began, her voice trembling slightly. He looked at her with concern, holding her hands in his. "What is it, Sophia? You know you can tell me anything." Taking a deep breath, she told him everything about Lucas's condition, about the astronomical costs of treatment, and about the dilemma she was facing. Ethan listened attentively, his face a mixture of concern and relief that she was finally opening up. When Sophia finished, he spoke softly. "I understand why you hesitated to tell me, but Sophia, I want to help. Not because you asked, but because I care about you and your family." "I can't accept that much money, Ethan," protested Sophia, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "What if it wasn't money?" he suggested, an idea forming in his mind. "What if it was an agreement?" Sophia looked at him, intrigued. "What kind of agreement?" "You're a talented chef, Sophia. Not just with coffee, but with food in general. How about if for a week you come cook for me? Elaborate dinners, gourmet breakfasts, the works. In exchange, I'll cover Lucas's medical expenses." The proposal caught Sophia by surprise. It was a way to accept help without feeling completely dependent. Still, she hesitated. "A week of work for the entire treatment? That doesn't seem fair to you." Ethan smiled, that smile that always made her heart skip. "Believe me, a week of your food and your company is worth much more than you imagine." After much reflection, Sophia accepted. What she didn't know was that this week would change not only Lucas's life, but also reveal long-buried secrets, connecting her family's past to Ethan's business empire in ways no one could foresee. They walked back, the rain diminishing to a fine drizzle. Sophia felt a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. Fate was about to unravel a complex plot where love would be tested, truths would come to light, and the meaning of family would be redefined. Ethan Harrison's luxurious penthouse was a stark contrast to the small apartment that Sophia shared with her family. As she entered the private elevator, carrying a suitcase with her favorite kitchen utensils, she felt as if she were crossing a portal to another world. The first day of the agreed week started early. Sophia woke before sunrise, determined to prepare a breakfast that would impress even Ethan's refined palate. As she worked in the state-of-the-art kitchen, so different from the small kitchen at Aroma Cafe, she couldn't help but reflect on how surreal her situation was. Ethan entered the kitchen, still in his silk robe, and stopped, amazed by the sight and aromas that greeted him. The table was set with simple but impressive elegance, still warm artisanal breads, a variety of carefully selected American cheeses, artistically arranged fresh fruits, and, of course, a steaming Italian coffee maker. With Sophia's special blend. "This is amazing," murmured Ethan, clearly moved by the dedication Sophia showed in every detail. As they shared the meal, the conversation flowed naturally, as it always did between them. However, Sophia noticed that Ethan seemed distracted, almost worried. "Is everything okay?" she asked, serving more coffee. Ethan hesitated for a moment before answering. "Sophia, there's something I need to tell you. Something about my past and your family's." Sophia's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "Last night, after we said goodbye, I did some research. I wanted to better understand Lucas's condition and see if there was any way to help beyond financially." He paused, carefully choosing his next words. "In the process, I ended up discovering something about your family's old restaurant." Sophia felt a knot form in her stomach. The closure of her parents' restaurant almost a decade ago was still a painful subject. Ethan continued. "Sophia, one of my first business acquisitions was a real estate development company. At the time, I was focused only on the numbers, on rapid expansion. Now, I know that this company was responsible for pressuring several small businesses to close to make way for a large development. Your family's restaurant was one of them. The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. All the difficulties her family faced after the restaurant closed, all the sacrifices and nights of worry, suddenly gained a new context. You knew this all along?" she finally managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. "No, I swear I didn't," replied Ethan, the anguish evident on his face. "I was young, ambitious, and frankly, disconnected from the real consequences of my business decisions. I only realized the connection last night." Sophia stood up abruptly, needing space to process all that. Her thoughts were a whirlwind. How could she reconcile the Ethan she knew and loved with the man whose actions had caused so much suffering to her family? "I need some time," she said, heading for the door. "Sophia, please." Ethan followed her, his voice laden with remorse. "I know this changes everything, but I need you to know since I met you I've been trying to be a better person, to do business more ethically. You showed me a side of life that I had forgotten." She turned to face him, tears in her eyes. "That doesn't change the past, Ethan. It doesn't erase the years of struggle my family went through. I know, and that's why I want to make things right now. Not just for Lucas, but for your entire family. Give me a chance to fix my mistakes." Sophia hesitated at the door, torn between anger, disappointment, and the love she still felt for Ethan. "I need to think, and I need to talk to my family. She left, leaving Ethan alone in the luxurious penthouse that now seemed empty and cold without her presence. The days that followed were an emotional roller coaster for Sophia. She continued to fulfill her agreement, preparing meals for Ethan. But the environment was tense, laden with unspoken words and conflicting emotions. Meanwhile, Lucas was starting his treatment, unaware of the drama unfolding. The improvement in his condition was visible, bringing a ray of hope amid the emotional storm Sophia was facing. It was during the preparation of dinner, on the 5th day of the agreed week, that something unexpected happened. Sophia was marinating a fish dish when Ethan entered the kitchen, carrying an old folder. "I found this in the company archives," he said, placing the folder on the counter. "These are the original documents from the transaction that led to the closure of your family's restaurant." Sophia looked at the folder with apprehension, fearing what she might discover. "There's something here you need to see," continued Ethan, opening the folder and pointing to a signature at the end of one of the documents. Sophia's heart stopped for an instant. The signature belonged to her uncle, her father's brother, who at the time was a minority partner in the restaurant. "What does this mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It means that the sale of the restaurant wasn't forced as we thought," Ethan explained softly. "Your uncle secretly negotiated with the real estate company, selling his part and pressuring your father to do the same." The revelation hit Sophia like a tsunami. Memories of family arguments, of her uncle's sudden disappearance after the restaurant closed, everything began to make terrible sense. At that moment, Sophia realized that the story she thought she knew was just the tip of an iceberg of family secrets. And Ethan, whom she initially saw as the villain of this story, might be the key to unraveling the whole truth. With trembling hands, she picked up her phone. "I need to call my dad. He needs to know this." As she dialed, Sophia looked at Ethan, seeing him in a new light. The man she believed had destroyed her family's business was now helping to reveal a long-buried truth. The week that was supposed to be just about cooking and paying off a debt was transforming into a journey of discovery, forgiveness, and perhaps a new beginning for all involved. The call to Anthony, Sophia's father, was tense and exciting. With a choked voice, she tried to explain the discovery about her uncle and the documents Ethan had found. On the other end of the line, her father's silence was deafening. "Dad?" Sophia called, concerned by the lack of response. Finally, Anthony spoke, his voice laden with emotion. I always suspected something was wrong with that sale, but I never imagined that my own brother." The conversation that followed was painful, filled with revelations and years of repressed hurt. Anthony agreed to meet with Sophia and Ethan the next day to see the documents in person. That night, as she prepared dinner, Sophia felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Ethan, noticing her emotional state, offered to help in the kitchen. Together they worked in silence, cutting vegetables and seasoning the chicken. The physical proximity and the shared task seemed to fill the void of unspoken words between them. "You know," began Ethan, breaking the silence, "when I was a child, my mother always said that cooking together heals any wound." Sophia looked at him surprised. Ethan rarely talked about his family. "She must be a wise woman," replied Sophia softly. "She was," corrected Ethan, a tone of sadness in his voice. "She passed away when I was 15. It was after that I became. Well, the ruthless businessman you met through those documents." The revelation caught Sophia by surprise. Suddenly she saw Ethan in a new light, not just as the successful businessman, but as someone who also carried his own pains and scars. The meeting with Anthony the next day was charged with emotions. Upon seeing the documents, Sophia's father alternated between moments of intense anger and deep sadness. Ethan, demonstrating a sensitivity that Sophia didn't know, offered not only explanations, but also a sincere apology for the role his company had played, even if indirectly, in the family's suffering. "Mr. Morgan," said Ethan, his voice firm but gentle, "I know nothing can erase what happened, but I would like to offer a proposal." Anthony and Sophia looked at him, curious. "I want to buy back the land where your restaurant was and return it to your family. Additionally, I'm willing to finance the reopening of the business, if that's your wish." The silence that followed was broken by the soft sound of Anthony's crying. Years of frustration and postponed dreams seemed to dissolve in that moment. Sophia, for her part, felt divided. Ethan's generosity touched her deeply, but a part of her still struggled with pride and the desire for independence. "Ethan," she began, "this is amazing, but we can't simply accept." Ethan gently interrupted her. "It's not charity, Sophia. It's a business opportunity. Your father has years of experience, you have incredible talent in the kitchen. Together, you can create something extraordinary. Consider it an investment, both in the business and in the people I believe in." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activities. While Lucas continued his treatment, showing promising signs of recovery, Sophia and her father immersed themselves in plans to reopen the restaurant. Ethan kept his word, providing not only financial support, but also valuable business guidance. The process of rebuilding the restaurant became a metaphor for rebuilding relationships. Sophia and Ethan worked side by side, learning to trust each other in a deeper and more authentic way. The barriers that once seemed insurmountable, social differences, complicated pasts, began to dissolve in the face of joint effort and the love that grew between them. One afternoon, while supervising the renovation work on the restaurant, Ethan surprised Sophia with a question. "If I asked you to marry me now, what would you say?" Sophia almost dropped the clipboard she was holding. "Ethan, we still have so much to resolve, so many things to overcome." He smiled, that smile that always made her heart melt. "I know, I'm not asking now. I just want you to know that for me, you are the future I want to build. No matter how long it takes, I'll be here." At that moment, looking at the space that would soon be the new heart of her family, Sophia felt a certainty she had never experienced before. The differences between them, which once seemed like insurmountable mountains, were now just steps in a shared journey. "When you really ask," she replied, intertwining her fingers in his, "my answer will be yes." The smile that lit up Ethan's face was brighter than the sun coming through the newly installed windows. Together, they were not only rebuilding a restaurant, but weaving the beginning of a new story. A story of forgiveness, growth, and true love. As the day came to an end, with the sound of construction in the background and the smell of fresh paint in the air, Sophia reflected on the amazing journey life had provided her. From a mistaken embrace at the airport to this moment of promise and hope, each step, each challenge had led them to this point. The future, with all its uncertainties and possibilities, had never seemed so bright. The months that followed were a mixture of intense work and moments of profound joy for Sophia and her family. The restaurant, now named Rebirth, was taking shape quickly. Every detail was carefully planned, from the kitchen layout to the selection of local suppliers. Sophia divided her time between supervising the works, creating the new menu, and visiting Lucas in the hospital. Her brother's health improved every day thanks to the specialized treatment he could now receive. Seeing the smile returning to Lucas's face was for Sophia the greatest reward of all. Ethan, for his part, surprised everyone with his involvement in the project. He wasn't just a distant investor, he was present at each step, offering ideas, contacts, and most importantly, his unconditional support. One day, while Sophia was experimenting with new recipes in the temporary kitchen set up at the back of the restaurant under construction, Ethan arrived with an enigmatic expression. "I have a surprise for you," he said, barely containing his excitement. Sophia raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What is it this time? Don't tell me you bought another high-tech kitchen equipment. Ethan laughed. Better, come with me. He led her outside where a car was waiting. After a short trip, they arrived at a quiet residential neighborhood. Ethan stopped in front of a charming house with a small garden in front. What do you think? He asked, carefully watching Sophia's reaction. It's beautiful, but I don't understand. What are we doing here? Ethan took a deep breath as if gathering courage. Sophia, I know I promised to wait to do this officially, but this house can be ours, our home. That is, if you want. Sophia's heart raced. She looked from the house to Ethan and back to the house. It was a huge step, bigger than any she had ever imagined taking. Ethan, it's a beautiful gesture, but I don't know if I'm ready to. He gently interrupted her. I'm not asking us to move in immediately. Consider this a plan for the future, a future I want to build with you, at your pace. His words touched her deeply. It was exactly what she needed to hear. The promise of a future together, but with respect for her space and time. Can we look inside? Asked Sophia, a smile beginning to form on her lips. The interior of the house was even more charming. As they walked through the rooms, Sophia could already imagine the possibilities. The cozy living room where they would host friends and family, the office where she could plan the restaurant's menus, and the kitchen. So the kitchen was a dream. This kitchen was what made me think of you immediately, said Ethan, observing the sparkle in Sophia's eyes as she inspected the cabinets and state-of-the-art appliances. Sophia turned to him, emotion overflowing in her voice. It's perfect, Ethan. All of this is perfect. At that moment, looking at each other in the kitchen that could be the heart of their future home, both felt they had reached a turning point in their journey together. So, is that a yes? Asked Ethan, a mixture of hope and nervousness in his voice. Sophia stepped forward, wrapping him in a tight hug. It's a let's build our future together step by step. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and activities. Sophia shared the news with her family, who received it with a mixture of happiness and apprehension. Lucas, in particular, was radiant. It was about time you thought about yourself, little sister, he said during one of his hospital visits. The Rebirth restaurant was almost ready for its grand opening. Sophia spent hours in the new kitchen, perfecting recipes and training the team. Ethan, for his part, took care of the final administrative and marketing details. On the eve of the opening, the entire family gathered at the restaurant for a private dinner. It was the first time they would all be together since the revelations about the past and the new developments in their lives. As Sophia prepared dinner with the help of Lucas, who insisted on participating even though still recovering, she reflected on the amazing journey they had taken, from an accidental meeting at the airport to this moment of new beginnings and hope. Each challenge and each joy had led them to this point. The delicious aroma of food filled the air as the family gathered at the table. Anthony, visibly moved, raised his glass for a toast. To family, to new beginnings, and to love that overcomes all barriers. Everyone raised their glasses, eyes shining with tears of happiness and hope. Sophia looked at Ethan, who returned, with a smile full of promises for the future. That night, as laughter and conversations filled the restaurant, Sophia felt a deep sense of belonging and fulfillment. Rebirth wasn't just the rebirth of a family business, it was the rebirth of dreams, relationships, and a love that had exceeded all expectations. When the last dish was served and smiles of satisfaction illuminated everyone's faces, Sophia knew that regardless of the challenges the future might bring, they would face them together, as a family, stronger and more united than ever. The dawn of Rebirth's opening day brought with it a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Sophia woke up even before the alarm went off, her mind already in full activity, mentally reviewing every detail of the preparations. Upon arriving at the restaurant, hours before the official opening, she found the team already in motion, preparing the final details. The aroma of fresh bread and freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mixing with the fragrance of fresh flowers that decorated the hall. Ethan arrived shortly after, carrying a small box. "Good morning, chef," he said, smiling. "I brought something for good luck." Sophia opened the box, revealing a delicate brooch in the shape of a small wooden spoon. "It was my mother's," explained Ethan. "She always wore it when she cooked on special occasions. I thought you should wear it today." Moved, Sophia let Ethan pin the brooch to her chef's uniform. The simple but deeply meaningful gesture calmed her nerves and filled her with a new confidence. The hours preceding the opening passed in a blur of frantic activity. Sophia coordinated the kitchen with military precision, while Ethan supervised the final adjustments in the dining hall. Lucas, still recovering but determined to participate, took on the responsibility of greeting the guests. At 7 p.m. sharp, the doors of Rebirth opened for its premiere night. The restaurant quickly filled with an eclectic mix of guests: food critics, journalists, friends, family, and prominent business figures, all eager to sample the cuisine and witness the rebirth of this family enterprise. In the kitchen, Sophia worked with intense concentration, orchestrating her team with skill and passion. Each dish that left was a work of art, a perfect fusion of traditional techniques and modern touches that reflected her personal and professional journey. Ethan alternated between the hall and the kitchen, ensuring everything ran perfectly. In a moment of relative calm, he approached Sophia, who was giving the final touches to a dish. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. Sophia looked at him, a mixture of exhaustion and ecstasy on her face. "Like I'm living a dream," she replied. "Her dream I don't want to wake up from." The moment was interrupted by Lucas, who entered the kitchen with a radiant smile. "You need to see this," he said, gesturing for them to follow him. In the hall, guests were animatedly enjoying the food and atmosphere. Cheerful conversations and enthusiastic compliments could be heard from all directions. Sophia watched, moved, as her father Anthony circulated among the tables, his face glowing with pride as he shared stories about the old restaurant and plans for the future. Suddenly, everyone's attention was drawn to the center of the hall, where one of the city's most renowned food critics stood up asking for silence. "In my 30 years of career," he began, "I have rarely found a place that so perfectly captures the essence of what a restaurant should be. Rebirth is not just a name, it's a fulfilled promise. The food here not only feeds the body but nourishes the soul. Congratulations to Chef Sophia, her family, and everyone involved in this extraordinary project." Thunderous applause filled the environment. Sophia felt tears spring to her eyes, emotion overflowing in her chest. Ethan hugged her from behind, whispering in her ear, "You did it, my love. You really did it." As the night progressed, the success of the opening became increasingly evident. Social media began to buzz with enthusiastic photos and comments about the city's new gastronomic hotspot. Journalists were lining up to schedule interviews with Sophia and her family. Near the end of the night, when the last customers were beginning to say goodbye, Sophia gathered the entire team for a toast. "Tonight," she said, raising her glass, "doesn't just mark the opening of a restaurant, it marks the beginning of a new journey for all of us. A journey of growth, of overcoming, and of love. Thank you to everyone who has been part of this." As glasses clinked and smiles illuminated the tired but happy faces around her, Sophia felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Rebirth was more than a commercial success. It was the realization of a dream that had overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Later, when the restaurant was finally empty and the silence of night enveloped the place, Sophia and Ethan remained alone in the dining room. They danced slowly to the sound of soft music coming from the sound system, their bodies close, moving in perfect synchrony. "Did you know that it was exactly here at this spot that we first embraced in the old restaurant?" murmured Ethan. Sophia smiled, remembering the mistaken hug at the airport that had started it all. Who would have thought that a mistake could lead to something so perfect? Ethan pulled her closer, his eyes fixed on hers. "Sophia, you've made me a better man. You've given a new meaning to my life. I love you more than words can express." "I love you too, Ethan," replied Sophia, her voice full of emotion. "Thank you for believing in me, for believing in us." As they continued to dance under the soft light of the empty restaurant, Sophia reflected on the amazing journey that had brought them there. From a casual encounter to a love story that had transformed not only their lives, but the lives of everyone around them. Rebirth wasn't just a restaurant, it was a symbol of hope, of second chances, and of the transformative power of love. And as Sophia rested her head on Ethan's shoulder, she knew this was just the beginning of a new and exciting adventure. The months following the opening of Rebirth were an emotional roller coaster for Sophia and Ethan. The initial success of the restaurant brought with it a wave of new responsibilities and expectations. Reservations were always full, with a waiting list that extended for weeks. Food critics from all over the country lined up to sample Sophia's innovative cuisine, and social media never stopped buzzing with praise and photos of the stunning dishes. However, with success also came the first obstacles. Sophia found herself working endless hours, often arriving before dawn and leaving well after midnight. The pressure to maintain the high standard established at the opening was overwhelming. Ethan, for his part, faced his own challenges. His decision to partially step away from his other businesses to dedicate himself to Rebirth was causing friction with some of his partners and investors. Rumors began to circulate in the corporate world about his distraction with a personal project. One night, after a particularly stressful day, Sophia arrived home exhausted to find Ethan sitting in the dark of the living room, an untouched glass of whiskey in front of him. "Ethan, is everything okay?" she asked, concerned. He looked up, a mixture of tiredness and worry on his face. "Sophia, we need to talk." Her heart raced. "What happened?" Ethan sighed deeply before speaking. "I received a proposal today, a merger that could triple the value of my companies, but it would require me to move to San Francisco for at least a year to oversee the transition." The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. "And what did you answer?" she finally managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. "I said I needed to think," replied Ethan, getting up and walking towards her. "Sophia, I don't want to make any decision without you. We're in this together, remember?" Sophia nodded, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall. "But what about the restaurant? And our life here?" Ethan hugged her tightly. I know. It's an impossible decision, but maybe we can find a way to make it work." In the days that followed, Sophia and Ethan found themselves at a crossroads. The idea of a prolonged separation was painful for both, but at the same time, the professional opportunities were tempting. It was during a family dinner with Lucas and Anthony that an unexpected solution emerged. "Why don't you expand Rebirth to San Francisco?" suggested Lucas, between forkfuls of ravioli. "It would be an incredible opportunity to take New York cuisine to a different market." The idea caught everyone by surprise. Sophia and Ethan looked at each other, a spark of enthusiasm lighting up in their eyes. "But what about the restaurant here?" asked Sophia, hesitantly. "I can take care of things here," offered Anthony. "With Lucas's help, of course. You've built an amazing team, Sophia. Maybe it's time to trust them to take the next step." The following weeks were a whirlwind of planning and preparations, the decision to expand Rebirth to San Francisco, coinciding with Ethan's merger, was bold and scary but also incredibly exciting. Sophia spent days intensively training her team, preparing them to take on more responsibilities in her absence. Ethan dove into meetings and negotiations, ensuring that the restaurant's international expansion was an integral part of the merger agreement. The eve of departure arrived faster than they expected. Sophia and Ethan spent the night at the restaurant, sharing an intimate meal personally prepared by her, reminiscing about their journey so far and dreaming about the future. "I'm scared," admitted Sophia, as they savored dessert. "What if we can't handle it? What if San Francisco is too much for us?" Ethan took her hand across the table, his eyes full of love and determination. "Sophia, look at everything we've already overcome together. This isn't the end of our story. It's just the beginning of a new chapter." The next morning at the airport, surrounded by family and friends who had come to say goodbye, Sophia felt a déjà vu of the day she had mistakenly hugged Ethan so many months ago. Now, as they embraced before boarding, there was no mistake, only the certainty of a love that had overcome all obstacles. When the plane took off, taking them towards new horizons, Sophia looked out the window at the city they were leaving behind. Rebirth wasn't just a restaurant. It was a symbol of their journey, of their love, and of their courage to face the unknown. And as the clouds parted, revealing an infinite sky ahead, Sophia knew that no matter what the future held, she and Ethan would face it together, with the same passion, determination, and love that had brought them here. The taxi wound through the busy streets of San Francisco, taking Sophia and Ethan to what would be their new home for the next few months. Through the window, Sophia marveled at the rolling hills, the iconic Victorian houses, and the constant flow of people on the sidewalks. "It's all so intense," she murmured, feeling a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Ethan gently squeezed her hand. "Welcome to the Bay Area, my love." Their temporary apartment was a spacious loft with a view of the Golden Gate Bridge. As they unpacked, the reality of their new life began to settle in. Sophia immediately started reorganizing the kitchen, while Ethan set up his improvised office. The first days were a rush of meetings, visits to possible locations for the new Rebirth, and endless phone calls to New York to monitor the progress of the original restaurant. Sophia was surprised by the speed and intensity of San Francisco. Everything seemed to happen at a frenetic pace. A week after their arrival, during a rare moment of calm, Sophia and Ethan decided to explore the local food scene. They visited everything from food trucks to Michelin-starred restaurants, absorbing inspirations and ideas for their own venture. It was during one of these dinners that Sophia had an epiphany. "Ethan," she said, her eyes shining with excitement, "what if instead of simply replicating Rebirth here, we created something entirely new, something that mixes the essence of New York with the spirit of San Francisco?" The idea quickly caught fire. In the weeks that followed, Sophia immersed herself in a creative whirlwind, experimenting with bold fusions of East Coast flavors with West Coast techniques and ingredients. Ethan, for his part, used his contacts and experience to navigate the complicated business world of San Francisco. However, not everything was smooth sailing. The distance from home began to weigh, especially for Sophia. Nightly video calls with Lucas and her father were a constant reminder of what they had left behind. Additionally, the pressure for success was overwhelming. San Francisco's culinary world was unforgiving, and they knew they would only have one chance to make a first impression. One day, after a particularly stressful series of tastings with potential investors, Sophia found herself in tears in the bathroom of the apartment. Ethan found her there, huddled on the floor. "Hey," he said softly, sitting next to her. "Want to talk about it?" Sophia sobbed. "What if we've made a mistake, Ethan? What if we're not ready for this? San Francisco is so unforgiving." Ethan hugged her tightly. "Sophia, remember the day of Rebirth's opening in New York? You were nervous then too. But look at what we managed to create together. This city may be unforgiving, yes, but we're stronger together." That conversation was a turning point. Sophia rediscovered her confidence and, with Ethan's unwavering support, dove headfirst into preparations for the grand opening. Finally, after months of planning, testing, and refinements, the big day arrived. The new restaurant, christened Roots and Wings, was ready to open its doors to San Francisco's demanding audience. The opening night was a whirlwind of emotions. Food critics, celebrities, and prominent figures from the culinary world filled the elegantly decorated space. Sophia, dressed in a chef's uniform that blended traditional elements with a modern touch, commanded the kitchen with a mixture of nervousness and determination. The menu was a bold celebration of the fusion between East and West Coasts. Dishes like deconstructed New York strip with Bay Area herbs and Atlantic and Pacific Ocean seafood fusion surprised and delighted the guests' palates. Ethan circulated through the dining room, charming those present with his elegance and charisma, while occasionally casting looks of admiration and support to Sophia through the kitchen doors. As the night progressed, it became clear that Roots and Wings wasn't just another restaurant, it was a phenomenon. Social media exploded with photos and praise, and the murmurs of approval from the critics present were more than promising. At the end of the night, exhausted but radiant, Sophia finally emerged from the kitchen to join Ethan in the nearly empty dining room. They embraced in silence, letting the success of the night envelop them. "We did it," whispered Sophia, tears of joy in her eyes. "No, my love," corrected Ethan, kissing her softly. "You did it. Your talent, your passion, your courage. You conquered San Francisco." As they danced slowly in the empty dining room to the soft sound of jazz playing in the background, Sophia reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them here. From a mistaken embrace at an airport in New York to this moment of triumph in San Francisco, each challenge, each obstacle had only strengthened their love and partnership. Roots and Wings wasn't just the name of a restaurant, it was the embodiment of their story, rooted in their origins, but with wings to fly and conquer new horizons. And as the city that never sleeps continued its frenetic rhythm outside, inside the restaurant, Sophia and Ethan savored their moment of victory, ready to face any challenge the future might bring together. The success of Roots and Wings in San Francisco exceeded all expectations. In the months following the opening, the restaurant became one of the most happening places in the city, with reservations sold out weeks in advance and enthusiastic reviews in the most prestigious culinary publications. Sophia found herself at the center of a media whirlwind. Invitations to TV shows, interviews for renowned magazines, and lectures at culinary schools became part of her routine. Her innovative approach to the fusion of culinary cultures transformed her into one of the most talked-about chefs of the moment. Ethan, for his part, skillfully navigated the San Francisco business world. The merger of his companies was progressing well, and he found creative ways to integrate the restaurant's success into his other business ventures. However, as their careers took off, the couple began to face new challenges in their personal life. The long working hours, the endless social commitments, and the constant pressure began to take their toll. One night, after a particularly exhausting day, Sophia arrived home to find Ethan asleep on the couch, surrounded by work papers. She felt a pang of guilt as she realized she couldn't remember the last time they had a quiet meal together, without talking about work or commitments. The next day, during a rare moment of calm in the restaurant's kitchen, Sophia received an unexpected call from Lucas. "Sis, when are you going to take some time to visit us? Dad's missing you, you know." The question caught Sophia by surprise. She realized that amid the bustle of San Francisco, she had lost track of how much time had passed since she left New York. "Lucas, we've been so busy, but you're right, we need to come back for a visit soon." The conversation with her brother planted a seed in Sophia. She began to reflect on the balance, or lack thereof, in her life. That night, she surprised Ethan with a home-cooked dinner, something she hadn't done in weeks. "What's this?" he asked, surprised to see the table elegantly set, with candles and the delicious aroma of home cooking in the air. "This, my love, is a reminder," replied Sophia, pulling him in for a kiss. "A reminder of why we're doing all this." During dinner, they talked as they hadn't in a long time. Not about work, not about the restaurant, but about them, about their dreams, fears, and hopes. It was like rediscovering each other. "Sophia," said Ethan, holding her hand across the table, "I think we need to rethink some things. We're living our professional dream, but at what cost?" She nodded, feeling a relief in finally addressing the elephant in the room. "You're right. We need to find a better balance." In the weeks that followed, Sophia and Ethan made a conscious effort to reevaluate their priorities. They began to delegate more responsibilities in their respective work, creating space for personal moments. They planned a trip back to New York, spending 2 precious weeks with family. The time away from San Francisco was invigorating, reminding them of their roots and what really mattered. During this visit, a surprise awaited them. Lucas, inspired by his sister's success, had transformed the original Rebirth into a vibrant meeting point for young chefs and food enthusiasts. The restaurant was flourishing under his innovative leadership. "You gave me wings," said Lucas, hugging Sophia and Ethan. "Now it's my turn to fly." Back in San Francisco, Sophia and Ethan brought with them a new perspective. They implemented changes at Roots and Wings, introducing a mentoring program for young chefs inspired by what Lucas was doing in New York. Sophia also began to explore her passion for writing, starting a blog that combined recipes, personal stories, and reflections on life between two cultures. The blog quickly gained loyal followers, attracting the attention of a publisher who proposed the publication of a culinary memoir. Ethan, for his part, found a new purpose in corporate social responsibility projects, using his influence to promote sustainability initiatives and support for small entrepreneurs. One evening, as they walked hand in hand through Golden Gate Park, Sophia suddenly stopped, turning to Ethan with a sparkle in her eyes. "You know, I think I finally understood the true meaning of Roots and Wings," she said. "Really?" replied Ethan, curious. "Yes, it's not just about mixing culinary cultures. It's about who we are. Our roots keep us strong, connected to what really matters, but our wings allow us to explore, grow, and reinvent ourselves." Ethan pulled her close, kissing her softly. "And that's why I love you so much. You always find beauty and meaning in everything." As they continued their walk, Sophia reflected on how her life had changed since that mistaken hug at the airport. Each challenge, each triumph, each moment of doubt had brought them here, stronger, wiser, and more in love than ever. The future still held many surprises and challenges, but now they knew that together, with their firm roots and open wings, they could face anything life presented them. The launch of Sophia's culinary memoir, titled Flavors of the Journey, was an event that marked not only her career, but also a new phase in her life with Ethan. The book, which blended recipes with personal stories of her trajectory from New York to San Francisco, became an almost instant bestseller. The launch tour took Sophia back to New York, and this time, Ethan made a point of accompanying her at every stage. They visited various cities, participating in literary and culinary events, always with huge lines of fans eager for an autograph and a word with the chef who had conquered two coasts. During an event in New York, at the original Rebirth, now under Lucas's skillful command, Sophia had an epiphany. Seeing the packed restaurant, with a mix of familiar faces and new admirers, she realized that her journey had inspired many more people than she had imagined. "Ethan," she said, pulling him to a quiet corner, "I think we have a new mission." Intrigued, he asked, "What kind of mission, my love?" "Education," replied Sophia, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "I want to create a scholarship program for talented young chefs from across the country who dream of studying abroad, just like Lucas did." The idea quickly took shape. In the months that followed, Sophia and Ethan worked tirelessly to establish the Roots and Wings Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to offering educational and professional opportunities to young culinary talents. The project brought a new purpose to their lives. Ethan used his business skills to secure partnerships and funding, while Sophia focused on developing the curriculum and guidelines for the program. Meanwhile, Roots and Wings in San Francisco continued to thrive now, under the leadership of a talented team that Sophia and Ethan had carefully cultivated. This allowed them to dedicate more time to the foundation and other personal projects. It was during one of the foundation's meetings that Sophia began to feel strange. Waves of nausea and dizziness afflicted her with increasingly greater frequency. Initially, she attributed it to stress and the packed schedule, but Ethan insisted she see a doctor. The news they received was unexpected and exciting. Sophia was pregnant. The prospect of becoming parents brought a new dimension to their relationship. Nights were spent discussing names, planning the baby's room, and dreaming about the future. The pregnancy also made them reflect on their own origins and the kind of parents they wanted to be. "How will we raise our child?" asked Sophia one night, caressing her growing belly. "Between two cultures, two cities?" Ethan smiled, embracing her. "The same way we live our lives, my love, with strong roots and wings to fly. Our child will have the best of both worlds. The news of Sophia's pregnancy quickly spread through the culinary and business worlds. Offers for baby product lines and children's cookbooks began to arrive. However, the couple decided to keep this phase of their lives as private as possible. With harm. The approach of the birth, Sophia and Ethan found themselves facing an important decision. Where should the baby be born? After much reflection, they opted to temporarily return to New York. They wanted their child to be born close to family and the cultural roots they so valued. The return to New York was received with great joy by Lucas and Anthony. The original rebirth was the scene of an exciting welcome party, gathering friends, family, and even some of the first scholarship recipients from the Roots and Wings Foundation. Weeks later, on a quiet spring night, Sophia gave birth to a healthy and beautiful girl. They named her Hope, a name that symbolized hope and the promise of a bright future. Holding her newborn daughter in her arms with Ethan by her side, Sophia reflected on the amazing journey that had brought them here. From a mistaken embrace at an airport to this moment of pure happiness, each challenge, each triumph had shaped who they were. "Welcome to the world, little Hope," whispered Sophia. "You have deep roots and wings to fly as high as you want." Ethan kissed his daughter's forehead, and then Sophia's. "Our greatest adventure is just beginning," he said, his voice full of emotion. As night fell over New York, the new family shared their first moment together, the beginning of a new chapter in a love story that had transcended borders, cultures, and expectations. 5 years passed since Hope's birth, and Sophia and Ethan's life had transformed in ways they could never have imagined. Little Hope, now a vibrant and curious girl, was the center of their world, bringing a new perspective to everything they did. The couple had established a routine that balanced their lives between New York and San Francisco. They spent half the year in New York, close to family and closely supervising the operations of the Roots and Wings Foundation, and the other half in San Francisco, where the Roots and Wings restaurant continued to be a culinary phenomenon. On tea. A sunny morning in New York, Sophia was preparing breakfast in the kitchen of the apartment they maintained near Rebirth. Hope, seated at the table, was drawing with intense concentration. "What are you drawing, my love-yo?" asked Sophia, placing a plate of fresh fruits in front of her daughter. "I'm drawing our family, Mommy," replied Hope with a smile. "Look, here's Grandpa Anthony, Uncle Lucas, you and Daddy, and me in the middle." Sophia smiled, moved to see how her daughter perceived the family, a circle of love that transcended distances and cultural differences. Ethan entered the kitchen, kissing Hope's forehead and hugging Sophia from behind. "Good morning, my favorite girls," he said, his accent now a charming mixture of East and West Coast inflections. "Daddy, are you going to take me to see the new restaurant today?" asked Hope, her eyes shining with expectation. Ethan exchanged a complicit look with Sophia before answering, "Of course, Princess. In fact, Mommy and I have a surprise for you." Later that day, the family gathered in front of a restored building. In the historic center of New York, a banner covered the facade, hiding the name of the establishment. Lucas and Anthony were already there, along with a small crowd of friends, family, and journalists. Sophia picked up Hope, while Ethan prepared to make the announcement. "Welcome, everyone," he began, his voice full of emotion. "Today, Sophia and I have the pleasure of presenting the newest member of the Roots and Wings family, a place that celebrates not only the fusion of culinary cultures, but also the future of gastronomy." With a nod, the banner was removed, revealing the name, Hope, the Taste of Tomorrow. The crowd applauded enthusiastically. Sophia, with tears in her eyes, explained, "This isn't just a restaurant. It's a learning center where scholarship recipients from our foundation will have the opportunity to learn, create, and grow. It's our legacy for the future of gastronomy." The interior of the restaurant was a welcoming and innovative space, with an open kitchen where customers could watch the young chefs in action. There were also classrooms equipped with cutting-edge technology for workshops and classes. As guests explored the new space, Sophia and Ethan stepped aside for a moment, watching Hope run excitedly among the tables, already feeling at home. "Who would have thought," said Sophia, resting her head on Ethan's shoulder, "that a mistaken hug at the airport would bring us here?" Ethan hugged her, softly kissing her forehead. "It wasn't a mistake, my love. It was destiny." At that moment, surrounded by family, friends, and the fruit of years of hard work and love, Sophia and Ethan felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had built not only a life together, but a legacy that would continue to inspire and nurture future generations. Hope was more than a restaurant. It was the symbol of a journey of love, overcoming, and growth. It was the promise of a bright future where the roots of the past nourished the wings of tomorrow. As the sun set over New York, painting the Iowa sky with shades of orange and pink, Sophia, Ethan, and Hope joined the family for the first official dinner at the new restaurant. The table was filled with dishes that told the story of their journey, from the comfort food that Sophia used to prepare at Aroma Cafe to the sophisticated fusion dishes of roots and wings in San Francisco. Lucas raised his glass for a toast. To family, to love, and to the taste of tomorrow. Everyone joined the toast, their voices mixing in a celebration of union, achievement, and hope. And so, as night fell and the first stars began to shine in the New York sky, Sophia and Ethan exchanged a look full of love and gratitude. They knew that, no matter what the future held, they would face it together, with deep roots and wings ready to fly.